everybody. Call to order the September 11th meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. Please call the roll.
St.Charles.
Here.
Folks.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Muntz. Here. Lencioni.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Trilla.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Festner.
Here.
Weber.
Here. I think we have some people with us. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move items G and H to the top of the agenda because I understand there's a lot of people here and in the interest of moving the agenda along.
Awesome. Second?
Second.
Thank you so much. Roll call.
Young.
Yes.
Trilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Festner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
St.Charles.
Yes.
Folks.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Muntz.
Yes.
That passes. Thank you very much. So we will proceed with what has been item G on the agenda, recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to demand payment under a letter of credit, the Reserve of St. Charles Subdivision Phase 2. Russell, you want to? The floor is yours.
Thank you. These next two items are both related to the Reserve subdivision on Route 31 at the north end of the city. This subdivision was approved in 2005 and constructed over a number of years. The project's now built out, and the only remaining subdivision improvement to be completed are the streets in Phase 2, which is the westerly half of the development. Staff has been in contact with the developer, Omnitech LLC, and has communicated with them throughout this summer. The developer is willing to complete the streets, but objects to spending any amount above the existing financial guarantee for the project, which is $343,249. So at issue is the city's request that the base pavement be replaced. This pavement is at least 15 years old and has been exposed to weather during this time period and is showing signs of deterioration. So we have two options in this situation. Attempt to force the developer to complete the city's requested work scope. This would likely push out the construction timeline past this current construction season and into 2024. Or the city can assume the responsibility to complete the work with use of the financial guarantee. With option two, we requested quotes for this work, and there was a low quote provided by Geneva Construction. They were the low bidder on the city's street rehab work this year. Their cost is approximately $385,318 in total, and that results in a shortfall of $42,569 that the city would need to fund in order to complete the construction if we were to proceed with having Geneva Construction complete the work this year. And Geneva Construction indicated to us that they can complete the work this year if the city can commit to funding this project by the end of September, which is why we're presenting it this evening. So if the committee were to recommend that the city draw on the letter of credit and proceed with the project, a bid waiver and contract would be forwarded to City Council for approval. And this approval would be contingent on the city successfully obtaining the letter of credit funds and then would require a budget add of the $42,000 that I mentioned. I would just state that this is a unique situation. These circumstances are not typical for build out of a subdivision to have the timeline for improvements to be installed to extend over this time period. So it's something we're going to look at in terms of what our codes say about these types of situations in the future, particularly with maintaining additional funds to account for situations where improvements that were previously made need to be replaced. The developer, Omnitech, has indicated that they would not dispute the city drawing on the letter of credit. However, staff has not agreed to waive any rights that we would have under the existing land improvement agreement to try and seek reimbursement from the developer after the fact, if possible. But given the current situation, we're recommending the city take over the project in order for the work to be completed this year. Otherwise, there would need to be some maintenance work completed over this winter that we would ask of the developer. But given the circumstances, the developer may be resistant to taking on that maintenance responsibility. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from the council? B&D?
I have a number of questions. So first of all, my understanding from reading the weekly development report is that the city does not own that street. We have not accepted ownership of that street in Phase 2. Is that correct?
So the improvements are within the city's street right-of-way, so it is on public street right-of-way. Typically with a subdivision, once the work is completed, we'll accept a bill of sale from the developer, basically saying we're taking over ownership of these improvements. If the city were to pull this letter of credit, draw on it, and declare the developer in default, we would essentially be taking over ownership.
Right, and that's a concern I have. And second, there was a letter that apparently went out in July to this developer regarding seeking payment, and completing the work. And my understanding is this was July. They had until August 4th to respond. Have they responded yet?
They have not provided any written response, which is what was requested.
So my concern is this. So we send this letter out saying, hey, you have these deficiencies, right, and you need to complete the work, $42,000. They don't respond, and I feel like we're letting them control the situation. And I feel like, they should be held accountable for finishing the project. We have a written agreement with them. And I think that it's here somewhere, but I just feel like because we haven't heard from them, therefore we're going to complete the project and then we're going to hope we're going to get reimbursed. That's what it sounds like to me. So for me, I think we should do a little more due diligence, be a little more assertive, get a response from them, get some sort of written response. I mean, if we haven't heard from them, I mean, what kind of precedent are we setting by saying, well, we sent the letter, we didn't hear, so then I guess we'll finish the project and we hope we'll get reimbursed. That's what it sounds like to me. So for me, I want to see more effort on the city's behalf to try and compel them to complete whatever they need to complete. Now, I'm not sure if there's, on that bond, that completion bond, it covers roughly $343,000?
Correct.
So is there $343,000 worth of work we can do to complete maybe just the street and compel them to complete whatever is around it at a later date? Is that an option, so we're not coming up with any money?
We can certainly look at options to do that. I don't know offhand what that would look like in terms of the extent of the improvements that couldn't be completed, but that's something we could evaluate.
Yeah, because I'm just concerned about the precedent we're setting, because there's actually a project on the west side, Prairie Apartments, behind the Jewel Food Store, and that is kind of the similar situation. I drove over there, and those streets have like a substrate, and the top coat hasn't been put on some areas. Some areas it has been done. And it's been about 5 or 6 years. So I'm concerned, if we do this, what's going to happen over there or the next project?
And Alderperson Warble, if I can step in just as a characterization on the precedent on this one. By the developer not responding, we obviously can't compel them to actually respond, but our method to get action from them would essentially be to declare them in default. So we're not letting them off the hook by pulling the letter of credit. Pulling the letter of credit is pulling the funds from them, and then the secondary step would be to declare them in default and then pursue action in court. So that is holding them accountable. That's the option to get.
Has our city attorney contacted them?
We are working through those steps right now, but the first step in this would be to pull the letter of credit to guarantee that we have the funds. So our city attorney has not made any contact with them? Not at this point. That has gone through staff
see,
to let them know.
I want our city attorney to make contact with them and compel them to respond to this letter. To me, it's like I'm going to go run away. I'm not going to take my responsibilities and finish. Why are we not being more aggressive with this developer?
But pulling a letter of credit is the next step in that, because we are removing $343,000 of their funds to actually complete the work.
Then you're asking this elected body to come up with $42,000 of taxpayer dollars.
And on the back end, the idea would be to declare them in default and then pursue that in court action to get the remaining funds from them.
Yeah, I disagree with that process completely. I don't think that's the proper way to do it, because we're setting a bad precedent here, and I just don't think there's enough effort that was done to compel this developer to finish their obligation, a written obligation. I have projects in my 4th ward that don't have funding allocated to them. I'm told, we don't have enough money for the sidewalk, but we have $42,000 of unbudgeted money to finish a developer's project. So I take issue with that. So I don't support this.
Russ, if we were to go after the developer for 42 grand, whatever that number is, I guess, let me step back for a second. If they don't pay this, will we deal with this developer ever again?
So we generally don't have the ability to pick and choose what property owners that we work with. There's situations where the city has the ability to negotiate through an annexation, for example, where we have some discretion as to what parties we'd want to work with. But generally, if they were to acquire a property or development in St. Charles, we'd need to work with them under our codes.
Okay, and then going back to the 40 grand, I think what my concern is one, this project's been going on for, it looks like about 20, 25 years. Is that correct? Or, I'm sorry, about 18 years?
Since 2005, 2006.
Yeah, 18 years. And right now, I don't feel like, putting 42 grand aside for the second, that we should leave residents stuck with this. This is just boggling to me to figure out. We're not talking about a few $100,000. We're talking about 42 grand. And I've seen a number of times we spent that kind of money on studies. So I do not want to see the residents get stuck with this. And at the same time, if you're, maybe you could get a little bit more detailed in the process. I mean, if we were to fund this to this group so that we can get this street taken care of, how easy it is to go after for 40 grand, because it's also going to cost us thousands of dollars to go after that. So that's my concern. And we've been down this road. It's a rabbit hole sometimes. And again, I don't want to see the residents waiting 2, 3, 5 more years for this. That's all I'll say. Thank you. Well,
yeah, just a quick question. The association, I'm sure, what has been their level of contact with him going back and forth? Is that part of their responsibility? I mean, I'm sure we were the last resort. I'm sure they started, but how did we get here? I guess is a better question, where you're talking about a project that started in 2005 and here we are 18 years later. I'm sure the association got involved, but I feel like all of a sudden we're here. It's like, well, how did we get here?
Yeah, so the construction of the streets is entirely a developer responsible requirement. It has no connection with the association in the neighborhood. Okay. And it's a requirement that's imposed by the city when the subdivision is approved. There's a land improvement agreement that was entered between the city and the developer that dictates the improvements that are to be made and requires this financial guarantee to be on deposit with the city. So, and we have that for the purpose that we're pursuing it tonight, to potentially complete the work in the event the developer does not. I think the unique circumstance here is the fact that this base pavement requires replacement.
Okay.
Thank you. Russ, what is the process, if it's an option, to have create maybe to get this project done, front the money to do some kind of a special short-term assessment for the neighborhood to make up the difference? So
there's a tool called the special service area, which you can establish for unique services within a given area. But typically for the process to establish that, it takes an extended period of time. And also there's an ability for property owners in that area to object and basically stop the process from going forward. So I think the timeline and the complications of that, I don't think that's a tool we could rely on to fund this cost.
What is the likelihood that if we were to pursue them, it would result in any sort of positive outcome for the city?
You know, it's hard to say. We haven't had this conversation with the developer after this type of discussion in terms of the direction that the city's going. I think that was part of the reason to bring this before the committee tonight, was that this is our opportunity. If we wanted to have this project completed this year, then the city taking it over, or alternately, we'll have to pursue other avenues, which may include trying to have the developer take on the rest of the work. That'll be a process, I think, for us to approach them and go through whatever legal process we need to try and compel them to do the work. The problem is we don't know the exact timeline of that. There's going to be some costs associated with that. So that's really the question tonight.
To Brian's point, to Brian's question, so staff is comfortable if this body has the support to pick up the tab, not knowing if the city is going to be able to successfully go find, staff is comfortable given the budget limitations and other projects, that we could move forward and make this work.
Yes.
And to kind of bounce off of Ryan's message, we are also, to confirm, you're stating also that if we were to do this, that in a year or 2 years, what have you, the same developer can still do business with us in the future.
Yeah, if they become a property owner, we'd have to work with them as we work with any other property.
Now, have we worked with them before in the past?
I'm not sure if the same developer entity has done other projects. I think the builder has done other projects.
Just from your vast knowledge, I wasn't aware myself, but okay. I'm just curious. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead. You go first.
I have a question. What is, if you were going to take a look at, taking a look at this globally, what is the greatest liabilities that the city has? Because we're talking about $40,000 on a project that, is somewhere around $480,000. And you talked about city right-of-way. So when I take a look at this, what is the absolute bottom line worst liability that we could end up with in the situation?
In terms of cost?
Sure.
I think that this number that's being presented is realistic in terms of the cost to complete the work. We know enough about what's constructed out there and have done enough analysis to understand that this cost is sufficient to cover the work that needs to be done to complete the streets.
If we were to take a position that we need to force the developer to do this, and we kept on this, is there any potential that there's no chance anything would ever get done and the developer would never pay for anything? Or this wouldn't ever get paid for or done?
The letter of credit that the city is holding would continue to be held as long as that land improvement agreement was valid, unless for some reason it was challenged. But the city at this point has no reason to release that letter of credit. We would continue to request it be renewed.
What would happen if this developer was, let's say they declared bankruptcy, or is there any risk to their credit where this letter of credit wouldn't be available?
No, it's basically insured by the bank, and and what the letter of credit that we hold is basically good for this value from this bank.
Okay, but if we did, what's the potential of increased cost if we allowed this issue to continue? Let's say that we went through the winter, didn't do anything, pursued legal action, do we have understanding of what cost going down that road would be and the potential that nothing would be done and we'd still, have residents with an unacceptable road that's a hazard?
Well, there's some maintenance work that would need to be completed before the winter because of some of the deterioration, so there's going to be a cost associated with that. I mean, this is something that we would first go to the developer and request that they do that maintenance work. I can't guarantee whether they would do that work or not. But that's something that needs to be done. And also we would need to get new quotes or new bids for the project in the spring. And we need to see what the numbers came back as. That's hard to predict. But we think this quote that we received is pretty good value compared to the other bidding the city does for street work this year.
My understanding is that the layer of roadway that's missing is also a layer that protects, the road from weathering. If that top layer was on, it wouldn't have weathered the way that it has. Through the... Correct,
because that base pavement, which is subject to the weathering, is what the city is requesting to be replaced, which is what's increasing the cost.
Well, replaced or actually added, because the base layer is being replaced, but the top layer has never been added, right?
Correct. So this would be the base layer and the top layer completed. So the streets would be in a complete finished condition at the conclusion of the project. There'd be no other costs associated with any other
how much
subdivision.
A risk of additional? I mean, we're talking about if we let this. If we did nothing here, are we talking about an additional $5,000 of cost that would be added by leaving it open? Are we talking about an additional $50,000, possible $100,000? What are we looking at?
I'd say that it's hard to predict because a lot of it will depend on material costs and labor costs next year, and competitive bidding results for what we might get for the project.
Well, thank you, Russ, for all that background. But looking at what we've done for the road resurfacing projects this year, we've already done half of that subdivision this current year. So having to drive through it and see where the demarcation mark is, where they stopped, So you mentioned the policies and procedures we have with land use developers. I can't believe that we let it go that long, that we're 18 years later after that we didn't push beforehand. And not saying it's right or wrong, but if we look at those procedures for any new work, and to the other person's point, if we do work with this developer again, kind of hold their feet to the fire and say, you need to finish everything. Because there's a huge difference, and if we let it sit, obviously it's going to cost us more. And just kind of being the business guy, is there any chance to go back to Geneva Construction? I'm not sure who did the other part of that subdivision. Just see if that's their best and final offer to maybe reduce that $42,000 gap that we're talking about.
Yeah, we certainly could try, but I believe the unit prices that were provided to us for Geneva Construction are the same unit prices that they provided. They were the contractor for the street rehab work the city had done.
Yeah,
so we think that's probably...
I just hate to see it go any longer because, you know, if we have a bad winter, we were fortunate last winter and it gets really bad, the cost could go up exponentially, and I just don't want to see us have to do that. So, thank you.
Yeah, I guess my question is it has been 18 years, so in a 19th year, if we can get this into a budget, whose budget does this go into? How does that actually work?
So it would be a project in community development because we would be overseeing the work. So it would be budgeted specifically for this project in the community development budget.
So it would not be in public works?
No.
Okay. And what if we were to approve that in this budget year where it's not in any approved budget? Where does that come from? What doesn't get done as a result of that?
So it would be a budget add, so those funds could either come from reserves or they could come from other unspent funds over the course of this current budget year.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. So the completion bond is 342 and change, or 343. What if we approved that tonight and not the 42,000? Would that get this project underway? And then continue your communication with the developer to see if you can actually get a response from them versus no response, and we're just responding to, you know what I'm saying? Is that something that's doable? Would that work?
So I think we'd have to look at that amount and see what portion of it could be completed, what portion of the work could be completed with that amount. But after we pulled that letter of credit, I think our ability to negotiate with the developer would be diminished.
It's over then. It's pretty.
I think we could try and enforce the agreement, but that's our leverage.
Yeah, I just feel like it just wasn't much. A letter went out like a month and a half ago. We don't get a response, and here we are. We're just going to cave in to a developer, and it just sets a really bad precedent. I want to see their neighborhood taken care of. I do. They deserve to have their neighborhood taken care of, but we also deserve to stand up to a developer that won't live up to their agreement as well. So I think it's a balance between the two. So, you know, I just wish there could be a little more effort with this and come back, and let's see where we're at to maybe get it done, you know, or at least negotiate, or at least say, hey, if this guy responds and says, you know what, I'm not doing it.
And they've said verbally, they've had this discussion with the community development director. He has been in contact with them. They just have not provided us a written response. They told us they don't have any objection to pulling the letter of credit. They just don't intend to provide the additional funds for that. So they have been in communication with Russell about this exact issue. They just don't want to fund it because of the history of it.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is, you know, we talk about things that are budgeted, unbudgeted. We take it from reserves. This is unbudgeted. We'll just take it from reserves. Well, I have a senior citizen on Horn Street that needs a sidewalk. It's $8,000. I'm told we don't have it budgeted for the sidewalk gap program. So therefore, that's not the priority over, you know, this is the priority. And that's for a whole neighborhood filled with seniors. So, you know, I take issue with that, you know, when it comes to priorities and funding. It's not their fault. It's just, I think, the way we do things up here or whatever. But I have a very hard time with this, the way this has been done, so.
Alderperson Bonta?
So that's an interesting point that Brian brings up. So when we talk about, you know, a sidewalk being done, well, it's not budgeted. So just to be clear, this project can be done. We can move forward if we so choose. But then when, you know, Brian says that he's had requests in the past of types of projects he wants to pursue, well, we can't do it. Help me understand how both those things can be true.
Well, this is really, you know, it's an unforeseen expense, and it's more of a timing issue that we're bringing it forward, because ideally we would budget a project like this in the city's normal budgeting process. We're able to look at all those different budget priorities at the same time and prioritize where the money's being spent, and deciding, if other projects, like a sidewalk project, are more important than completing streets. But this is more of a timing issue on our part, because we know this developer doesn't appear to have an interest in completing this work, and knowing that some maintenance work needs to be completed before the winter, we're bringing it forward now, really because it's more of an urgent situation. But the funds do exist in the reserves, or perhaps in money that will be unspent this year in the budget. But ideally, this would be a budgeted project if we had foreseen that this was going to happen.
And I appreciate the point that Brian's making, where, we all get asked at times, hey, can you help with this? Why don't we do X? And there's not an unlimited budget. At the same time, this body spent a lot of time talking about roads and infrastructure, and I would hate to see us let this opportunity go by again because of nobody's fault in this room. It's a developer that's not holding up their end of the bargain. We should be looking at different projects and things that we want to help our residents. In this particular case, I think it makes more sense to move forward and find a way to get this done, because we've spent months in meetings talking about tackling our infrastructure and roads, and makes sense to me that we should find a way to make this work.
And to your point, Alderman, too, maybe the way to kind of separate these two items are routine projects in our capital budget versus something where we've got a contractor in default that we're having to address an issue. So that's sort of how we separate it from a staff level and the discussion points that we have.
My only comment is I agree with what Brian said. I would support his position on this.
I'm curious, do we know if this is an insolvency issue with the developer? Or, are they simply unable to come up with $42,000, or are they just unwilling?
I know there's some history, and Russ, I don't know how much you want to get into the background on this and the change of hands of this actual project, but no, which is why our intent would be to declare them in default and then go after them with other methods. Now, certainly that could happen after the fact, but as of right now, that would be our push.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion on this matter? Seeing none, call vote.
Gebb?
Yes.
Petrilla?
No.
Wirball?
No.
Fessner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Zulkifli?
No.
Folks?
No.
Longon?
Yes.
Munn?
No.
Cal? Oh, wait. I don't vote as the chair, so that's the end of the vote.
5-4, no.
What's that?
It was 5-4, no.
Okay, motion that does not pass. So with that,
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
yes, absolutely.
If you continue to work with the developer and come back, I'm certainly open to reconsidering. I just want to see more of an effort, and then perhaps look at other bids, because you're doing you're just taking one bid as well. So
we did have multiple quotes that were received, so there were 5.
Okay, so I'd like to see all 5, and then continue to work with the developer, because after a month and a half, to me, we need to see some sort of response from them. So, that's all I have to say on it. But I think eventually, obviously, we're going to have to do something. But right now, I want to see more effort as far as working with the developer.
Yeah, we'll certainly try, but I can't guarantee we'll get a response.
Chairman Lencioni?
Yes.
Could I make a motion to approve the budgeted amount for this project?
So is that, we're talking about...
The 343, 249?
I don't know,
I would second that.
The bonded amount? Yeah.
On H, are we just taking a look at the recommendation to away? So we were just voting on the recommendation to approve that. So we're looking at a new motion that's not on here to make a motion to approve work in the amount that is exactly the letter of the amount of the letter?
So that vote was just to pull the letter of credit, and that vote was now denied. So now we have no money to actually do that unless the city wants to fund the $343,000 out of our own budget. The motion that was denied was to pull the letter of credit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that's done, and I as a chair, trying to figure out where the right place to make comment is, because I've heard a lot of things, speaking about what's happened, even though it's been, because we still have H, which at this point, I don't think that we need to waive any formal bid procedure, but with that being on the agenda, I was like, you're talking about holding a developer accountable. I mean, they're not children, it's a business. They made a business decision, they've already told us what's happening, and I think that we've misunderstood that section, the situation. We've still got a roadway that is a St. Charles right-of-way, even though, am I misunderstanding that? It's a St. Charles right-of-way.
Correct.
This is a road where our residents, are traveling through that has, severe damage, probably some of the most severe damage you're going to find anywhere in St. Charles, that now we're looking at getting outside of the construction horizon, and, it's not, I think there's a million things that we want to get done, but, it's not a situation where, this is a small matter. We've got, a developer that's agreed to be in default. But, that being a comment under H, I don't know if there's any reason. Russell, is there any reason to discuss?
Chairman Lencioni?
Yes.
Could this come back again next meeting? Because I don't know that everybody was 100% positive that was that vote. I just want to make sure, I wanted to be clear that everybody was aware that that was one piece of it.
Right, well, we have an agenda item that was just voted down. And I mean, an agenda item that's voted down, that's, we took action. It had to be, moved to be reconsidered.
We could do that at the next meeting, too, is what Alderperson Weber was asking, yes.
Okay, well, there we go. We have guidance. We can absolutely bring that up at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think if we were going to do that, we would look at that cost and see what portion of the work that could cover.
I think that's a good idea to see what that amount would cover, the bond, what would it cover? I think we need details on what that would
I
cover.
think that's a reasonable, to better understand some of those things, but do you have a sense of where we lose access to getting something done in this planning horizon?
So this contractor has told us that they would need an approval by the end of September, or at least some direction by the end of September, for them to be able to schedule this work in this construction season.
So Russell, I saw a breakdown of the work. They had different amounts for different bindings and things like that, curbs, aprons. Can you discuss that with the contractor to see what amount would fulfill that completion bond? What in there is flexible? What's workable? Can you work with him on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can evaluate that. I can't guarantee that it's going to be simple to do because we're working with a base layer. Well, I should say we're doing some of the concrete and curb repairs first, then we're replacing the base layer, and then we're adding the final paving surface. So we may not be able to hit that exact number.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like driveway aprons, for example, driveway aprons, right? I mean, things like that. There's things that are outside of the elements of the street is where I'm kind of leading to. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, we can evaluate that.
Okay. With that, I know there are a lot of people that came today to talk to that. So, keep your eyes open for a continued discussion. Russell, so would you expect, there's requests that are made, you have information on some of the things that people here would want to know. I'd also say that I'd like to better understand the risks of not doing this. So with that, Russell, is there any reason to continue with agenda item H since we don't have approval to pull a line of credit?
No, there's no need for action on item H. Okay,
so we will skip item H. That concludes any of the discussion regarding the streets and the reserve. So then going to what has been item A in presentation of the concept plan of Storch Crossing for Lot 4.
Hello. A concept plan has been filed by Greco Investment Management for the undeveloped parcel on Kirk Road south of Jewel. The plan includes 3 restaurant retail buildings clustered around a plaza, an additional retail office building. The Plan Commission reviewed the concept plan on September 6th and provided generally favorable feedback, which is summarized in the packet materials. I'll now turn it over to the applicant's team for a presentation of the plan.
Hey, welcome. Please just state your name before starting off the presentation.
Is Eddie Greco.
Eddie.
So we're here to present a concept plan for development of a retail, we call it a piazza, adjacent to the Jewel property. We developed priorly the Greco family in St. Charles, so been here 25 years. We are developing Pheasant Run, the industrial and Pheasant Run. We did the refurbication of Royal Fox Country Club, so we're locals and we enjoy it. And we felt we could bring a destination area to the east side, no different than we've done in the downtown, with some mixed retail, also restaurant, with a beautiful piazza type concept there. I don't know if you want to pull it up. See it on the screen now. There's 3 buildings there, which would be part of the piazza, and then there's a inline strip mall, of which we would move our family office from Bartlett to St. Charles, of which we're all residents of. We have contacted, being Greco and Sons in the food business, we've contacted many of the restaurant chains. We're looking for people to bring a experience, so we're looking for more of that type. We think we could generate some good tenants to come into this marketplace, different than the local mom and pops, although we built our business on mom and pops, so we believe in that. But these are local organizations, and we discussed in the previous meeting some of those that already have given us agreements to, or verbal agreements that they would come to participate in this concept idea that we have. Moving our family office, small, 10 people, but we would move it to the St. Charles area, and then we would build out. Building 4 would be more just some retail presence, and shops and stuff like that. And so we have enough parking. Since our last meeting, we were able to secure a deal with Jewel, so we are under a letter of intent to buy the Jewel property. So that, I think that'll eliminate we've come to an agreement. Unlike last week, we didn't have that agreement, but now we are in agreement with Sterling. So the family is going to buy the Jewel and that little piece of retail there. So that should solve our parking issue, although I thought we were good with parking, but now we won't have to worry about that anymore. So that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks a lot. Do we have questions or comments from the council?
I got a question, Paul.
I saw Alderman Bogart first.
Just because it's in the segment. I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's exciting that that parcel's been empty for 20 years that I've lived here, so it's great. Can't wait to see it get done.
Mr. Greco, I know you have other projects that you've completed in town. Everything you've always done is first class. You had mentioned at the planning commission meeting that this would be all these properties would be legacy property. You don't plan on building these and selling them. You're staying.
Yeah, we're not sellers. We like to keep. We've sold before, but the percentage of selling, we have over 5 million square feet in our real estate portfolio, run by our family. We're keepers, and we're locals here, so we love this town. The whole family lives in this town.
Yeah.
We look forward to building something really special here on the east side. We believe the access is good. We believe it's better than the congestion, and we think it's going to be really fun for our residents to have a place to go.
Yeah, I think this would be really great to keep that momentum going on that side of town. So thank you for bringing this in front of us.
I like the concept as well, and I applaud you for, our comp plan specifically mentions, focusing on infill, what you're doing, that this is a gateway into our city, and you mentioned destination. Again, really happy about that, and that, developers care about, following our comp plan and are faithful to that and want to see it become a destination. So very much appreciate that. And I know these are pictures that they're not exactly your plan, but if it's even remotely like it, I think it's going to be great. So
yeah, we've jumped the gun a little bit with the support of the mayor and Heather, we just wanted to get in front of you guys, and now we'll be able to get to architecturals with one of the best architectural, our engineers here, our leasing agents here, if you had any questions. But we'll get into the design of it. You know, we want it to meet the culture of St. Charles, so we want to make sure we do it right, make sure that it's affordable and fun. So there's a lot of input going in behind this, and it's not just, you know, and the fact that we made the decision to buy the Jewel just as a statement that we want to create something there.
Right. No, and I appreciate that, and looking forward to more information and details, so thank you.
I'm super excited to see what I'm looking at here, so thank you for putting this together. So I just have a question about the materials. You mentioned brick, or maybe it's in staff comment. Do you intend on using like brick? What kind of materials do you?
Yeah, all of our centers, if you go on our website, are all facial brick. We don't like that split block that's on the existing mall. So we're gonna do it right. And that builds the customers, you know, which are the tenants. You know, so we plan on doing facial brick. We plan on. Originally, the road was going to go behind, but staff has asked if we can continue that because we want to tie it into the mall. I think that's really important.
That's what I wanted to ask you is about the mall. So what are your thoughts on tying that into the mall? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, provided we can get it done, I think it's really important. We don't need to be on North Avenue. This is going to be more of a destination center. We're going to draw the people there. Going to have easy access to parking. But tying it to the back when those other PUDs are done, 5 years, 3 years, is only going to further strengthen all the participants, including behind us. But good access off of North Avenue, good access off of Kirk Road. Now we build that access there, good access off of Foxfield. I think it's good. And then staff has brought up some stuff in the previous meeting of sidewalks, so we'd like to engage more with you guys on how do we get the walk paths from all of the community there, you know, that are able to walk there and be safe. And so we're all for that. Anything to support the tenants. At the end of the day, they pay the bill.
And I was going to ask about the parking, but it sounds like you solved that issue.
We were close, and we had some. We've made a deal with the old Second Bank to use their parking. We also made a deal with the other mall across the way to be. But we're not going to. I don't think we're going to have to do that anymore. We're in an agreement, so we're into a letter of intent. So this is going to happen fast, and we're hoping to be able to get in front of you guys with some plans, provided we can, you know, the aesthetics is what we want to spend some time on, and once we could do that, we could always figure out the sidewalks and that, but within the plan, if we wanted to make adjustments, staff makes recommendations to us, but we're hoping to get these tenants in by June of 2025. So
that's great. Well, I'm excited to see it, so I'm glad you chose to do this, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just really excited that you're bringing this to the second ward. I think that's going to be wonderful. I'm happy to hear that you're working on some creative parking alternatives and not just building a lot of blacktop, because it's going to be beneficial for you to have more retail and more open space. And I love the idea of the openness to having more walkability that's sorely needed over on our side of town. So I really appreciate that you're interested in doing that.
What you guys have done downtown, opening up the back there, it's such a pleasure to be out there and back there. So imagine just more space like that and these windows all opening and people being able to go to a destination. You know, we've secured a Rainbow Cone, which is an icon on the Southside Ice Cream Company, and they've already committed to coming here. Giamia's Ella's concept is committed to coming here. So there's some really good participants coming that are, and then we want to give some of the experience, you know, and unfortunately, Scott Harris Group is going to be buying the Mexican restaurant, but his Fat Rosie concept, when you eat there, it's not even about the food anymore. It's the experience. And I think that's what we really need here. You know, we need experiences. We need people to be able to go somewhere and be able to enjoy an evening, you know. And when we could do, you know, mimic the Scarecrow Fest here, mimic, you know, beautiful outdoor for Christmas, you know, I think it's going to be, it's really going to be a neat concept. It really is. It's going to add to the culture of St. Charles.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to add thank you. It's a beautiful project. The piazza itself is going to be exciting. It'll be great for the second ward for sure. What I love most about it, and as we just mentioned, First Street, is the streetscaping you know, the lights, everything kind of mirrors similar to what we're doing downtown now. So that makes a connection there, which I've talked about in the past. I think overall, I like the fact that we've got a couple other developments that are completed and in motion in that area, but this is also going to kind of, I don't want to say surround the mall area, but it's going to bring development closer and closer to the center of where that mall is now, so.
I mean, if Cooper's Hawk could prove to us,
Oh, my God, yeah.
you know, standalone, they look like a redheaded stepchild out there, and now all of a sudden, we bring this whole piazza there. We're going to draw from everywhere, West Chicago, Bartlett. We're going to draw from everywhere here.
Yeah.
I think we will.
Well, thank you.
I hope we do.
Yeah, again, thank you for this. It's wonderful design. Once you get going, my only request is, because I'm sure once things start moving, people are going to be constantly asking us, what's going on, what's happening? The more in-depth updates you can provide, Heather, the mayor, that they can get to us, that we can communicate the excitement to our residents would be very beneficial. Not that you wouldn't do that anyway, but knowing that we've had those with First Street, that seems to help out a lot when people do have questions or even what's going on with the Pheasant Run. So continue to do that, because this will be something that will be fun to brag about. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll have enough, we'll be doing enough marketing and then pictures and signs everywhere. So we'll get the questions, and we're going to need it. We're going to, you know, it's a big piece. It's 70-something thousand square feet of retail, so that's a lot to fill.
Absolutely.
We'll get after it.
Alderperson Soltis.
Thank you. Well, I had two questions, okay, you've answered them, but one of them was the parking with Jewel, okay, that's solved. And you have a deal for the access road to the mall, right, to that road?
I don't know if we have a deal yet, but...
Right, you have an agreement that do that cross-access road?
I don't know who's got to approve that.
No, I mean, do you have
We're
agreement?
working on an agreement to do the access road there.
You're talking about the one at the north part?
Correct.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about, the north part?
Yeah, the one that goes to the mall there, that road, the ring road or
I
something,
think
right?
staff's in agreement with it. We just...
But are they okay with it too?
You're talking about the potential purchasers?
Yeah, I mean, are they okay with the shared
We're still working
access?
through details with them, but it is something that staff brought forward and we were very interested in, and the Greco team was very interested in it as well. So we see it a positive from all the sides.
Okay. Besides that, it looks good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No.
Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
Who's my motion? Motion by Ryan.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're approving anything. I think it's just,
The concept.
Informational?
yeah, it's just a concept, right?
Oh, yeah, no, okay, so, well, there's no other action on this one.
Still approved.
Still approved.
Well, we were excited.
Still
Thank you.
motioning to approve.
Awesome, thank you very much.
on board.
We appreciate
Thank you.
your presentation. So moving on, recommendation to approve a minor change to PUD on 1022 Main Street PUD. Wow.
Thank you. 1023 West Main Street is a gas station redevelopment at the southeast corner of West Main and South 11th Street. A PUD for the project was approved by council last year. Can you hear me?
Can we hear you?
A building permit for the project is currently under review. An issue has arisen regarding location of the electric transformer due to the limited size of the site and size of the transformer. A minor change to PUD application has been submitted, which requests removal of one parking space on the west side of the building in order to locate the transformer. The resulting parking count is 3 spaces, and that meets the parking requirement under the zoning ordinance. The applicant's representative is here tonight if there are any questions for the applicant.
Questions from the council? Alderperson Patel.
So we have another change to this PUD. We talked about it before, as you mentioned. So actually, I guess kind of 2 questions. How come this wasn't brought up before? I mean, what happened? I mean, we have a couple of years, a year and a half, I think, since we talked about this before. So this transformer issue wasn't brought up then. And I assume, fine, things change. But also, didn't we have a problem and have issue when we talked about this before about specifically the curb? And isn't this the time and place, if we're going to ask for a minor change, to bake that type of safety recommendations that we went around and around about a year and a half ago into this? And why did we not do that? I'm just
So
curious.
are you talking about the curb separating
Correct.
the sidewalk?
Yes, yeah.
That has been added to the plans. That was worked through with staff as part of the permit
Okay,
review.
they're so small, I guess I missed it. Okay, so there is a curb in there. Okay, so why did this happen then? I'm just curious, like the transformer, because the dumpster was actually mentioned in our last, I think your motion actually moved it. So why are we moving it back?
I believe the electric details hadn't been worked out at that
Okay.
point at preliminary engineering.
So, okay, no, go ahead.
So I recall I made the motion with a year and a half ago with the conditions of a single-story building, 2 pumps, and the dumpster was to be moved away from 11th Street right next to, adjacent to the building, because the residents that live on 11th Street do not want to look at the dumpster nor smell the odor of the dumpster. So now I see it's going back the other way. Why can't the transformer go underground?
There are access requirements for the transformer. The electric division needs to be able to maintain it and service it, and it also requires ventilation. So there are separation requirements from buildings and structures. So I don't believe it could be located underground.
So this is a city transformer that's going on the property?
Yes.
On the city transformer on private property?
Yes,
Okay.
it will be the developer's expense.
So why can't the transformer go to the east side of the property where that parking space is, and then the dumpster goes back adjacent to the building? Why, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd like to see them come back and find another spot for the transformer so that dumpster stays next to the building, or the dumpster goes in that east parking space. That's that one spot to the east, because I know we're losing a parking space as well, which means more cars will park on 11th Street. So I have some concerns about, I know it's a small ask, but then when they came back and they said, well, instead of 2 pumps, we want 3 pumps, then it changed the whole thing where they had to add a curb, and then the traffic count increased dramatically because of that 3rd pump, which they called a fail-safe pump, which is not a fail-safe pump because the distance is different than the original pumps that were there. So I'm not going to support this the way it is. I'd like to see them come back and redraw it or look at different options to get that dumpster away from 11th Street. That was the original motion like a year and a half ago. So that's where I'm at on that.
Other comments?
Sorry, really. Can you, Ellen, if you can, I'm just hung up on this curb thing again, because I thought you had to go through the PUD process to add it. Can you go to the, I mean, I'm not seeing where is it? Because that's my biggest problem. So these, okay. Right there. From these the square, these 2 squares, 126, it says 126.00 feet. In between there, is that indicative of a curb? And we don't require that change to be literally mentioned in, like, actually asked for or mentioned in the PUD other than just the physical plans? Does it have to be put in, is there a description? I mean, there's a descriptor piece in this, correct? Does it include the word curb? I just want to make sure that that's actually in there.
So do you see this, so this note right here notes a 6-inch curb height.
Okay, for that that little thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right, excellent. Thank you.
I guess I'm a little concerned. The plan came out a year and a half ago and was approved. At that time, the property owner was pleased with the plan that was approved?
I believe so.
So why didn't he start working?
The applicant is here to answer any questions as far as the status of construction and demolition.
I'm just kind of curious to that, because I understand the process takes a while, but it's been a year and a half, and it's been a year and a half of sitting, a year and a half of nothing, and really become a year and a half of an eyesore. I mean, for anybody driving by, anybody living by it, and now comes a change. So let's say that gets approved. And how much longer are we going to wait again before another change? And how much longer are we going to wait again? I guess I'm just wondering.
That's a question for the applicant.
Right.
Who would want to, address that. Please just take it in for the record.
Hi, I'm Eric Carlson, representing the applicant,
Thank you.
architect. Yeah, I mean, the project took a while for us to get started on viewing the drawings. They were working through an investor when we finalized the plan commission. The projected cost of the building came in higher than what the original owner could provide or support, so it took them a while to get some other people on board. Once we got them on board, we started and commenced the drawings. We've been in permits for a while, kind of working through a handful of little issues as far as we ended up having to flip the utilities to the other side, to the west side of the building, which changed where our water lines were coming in, and now we're working with the city to do a study to see if the water line along 11th Street can support the building. We're almost wrapped up with all of that stuff, so as soon as we finalize that stuff, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to finalize the last few review comments, get the permits essentially issued for the building. This transformer thing, when we originally planned on that, we anticipated the transformer to be on the pole. So during the plan review, the city requested or required us to put a transformer on the ground. So that's why this is kind of coming up now, because we didn't anticipate it being on the ground. And we're looking at, so essentially we reduced the size of the trash enclosure. We did take away one stall, but it's the closest one that we could to the building. So the trash enclosure is not on 11th, it's one stall over towards 11th Street. But we need that space for the clearance for the electrical box. We need 5 feet from the building, 5 feet from the trash enclosure, 5 feet from the retaining wall. So that's kind of, and the minimum size for a single phase transformer is 42 inches by 42 inches pad. So that's kind of why we had to shift that over the least amount that we could, which essentially takes that one stall away. We have limitations from the tank. We have limitations from the water line that runs across the south end or along the retaining wall. So it's really pinched in there. To your point, this is about the only spot we can put it. We looked at trying to move it up to the northeast side. There's no room over there to put it, and then it moves it closer to North Avenue. So this is kind of the best spot to do it. We might be able to pick up a couple inches because we didn't get that pad size. This is what's shown here is a 6 foot by 6 foot transformer pad. If we can make the single phase work, which we're 95% confident we can, that pad gets reduced to 42 by 42. So that's 18 inches. We can kick the trash enclosure over, provide a little bit extra space there by the parking, or maybe it's just make the trash enclosure a little bit bigger too, but it's only 5 feet on the interior, which is enough for one 2-yard dumpster. So it's pretty tight, obviously.
I think I'm going to beat Brian to the punch. If this recommendation isn't granted, what happens? Can we move, if we don't move forward with the change to the PUD, what then?
I don't know. Yeah, we've got either city lets us do a pole transformer or lets us put the transformer. We can move it to the 11th Street, but it has to be it's kind of off of our property limit. Yeah, we don't really have another option.
So then the second part, it's not necessarily a question, maybe more of a question / comment, is the last time that we looked at this over a year ago, there was a lot of questions, there was a lot of concerns. I wonder from your, I'll put you on the spot, but it seems like a tough place to do this type of project. And every so often, well, not so often, but we keep coming back around and it's getting tighter and tougher and move this over here and go. And I get when that gas station was built. How long was it built? Long time ago. A long time ago. That was kind of the gas station. Now, I mean, you hit a 9-iron, there's a nice place, very close. You keep coming, there's a lot. I'm just wondering at what point, I mean, it's not my money, council will take a look at it. It just seems like it's a tough project. And if we're saying, if you don't make this change, whew, man, here we go. And at what point do you have to start looking, going, if this project still makes sense to pursue for the applicant, for everybody involved, because it just seems like a really tight space. There's not really a question in there, so I apologize. But yeah.
Alderperson Wardwell?
Yeah, it looks like you're trying to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag is what it looks like. So it's just, you know, I'd appreciate if you can just work on the drawing and get that dumpster back, you know, because part of that is there are people that live right over there. And I don't know if you recall that meeting, there were quite a few people that expressed some concerns, and we approved this with conditions. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, that's how we worked it through, right? Conditions, and then they came back with 3 pumps, which really increases the traffic count over there. I saw the numbers, the data. You know, they're okay with it, but when, you know, you go back, hey, we're moving the dumpster back. I know it's not right adjacent to 11th Street, but the concern is what's going to be next. You know, so the neighbors are watching over there, and they have concerns, and I don't blame them. So, you know, my next question for you is there something going on with the sewer line over there? Is there an issue with the sewer line on that property, with the neighbor's property behind it? Or you're not aware of that? Okay. No. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank Brian and Ryan for their comments. You know, great. The curb's awesome. Love it. However, I mean, still, I'm just getting gas station fatigue. I apologize for being so negative about this, but I mean, I agree with what they say. I think it just seems like we're trying to shove so much on a small little space. And as a matter of policy and planning, I just think we are very close to, you know, it's just not feeling and looking as though it's you know, it's a viable place, and maybe we need to start thinking outside the box and in terms of that. So I appreciate the curb and everything and listening to that, but yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot, and I'm I'm still really not supportive of this project. So, but thank you though.
Alderperson Beck.
Do you know where the dumpster was before?
It was, so that where the transformer is now,
yes.
We were 9 feet over from that.
To the right as you're looking at the screen?
So, yeah, if I'm looking at that picture there, it's
Gotcha.
it was 9 feet over to the right.
And then just a statement, going back when we originally looked at this project, what some of my fellow colleagues have already said is true, but at one point there was an apartment that was supposed to be on the second floor. I was against that completely. It looks like at the time they didn't necessarily want the curb, but the curb got in. So I'm not sure, you know, what else can be done one way or the other, you know, without, I guess if we don't move forward, we don't move forward. I drove by there the other day as well, and I think I talked to Alderperson folks about this as well, and it looks terrible. I mean, it just looks terrible. It's an eyesore, but how much longer can we have that sit like that? You know, it looks like, I don't know whether the uses could be there without cleaning up the property and with remediation. So I'm in favor of it. We're moving a dumpster a few feet, and it's partly due to the city requiring where, you know, this city utility box should be, and that's where I'm at with it, so.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the contractor secured, contract is issued, so he's just waiting for the final permit.
And then one more question, do you know when this construction would start if this was approved? I mean, or be completed by? Are we by spring maybe, or is it later than that?
Well, no, I think the intent is to get it started before winter.
Okay.
And then work over winter, and then probably a 9-month to 12-month project.
Got it. Okay,
but they're ready to go. You know, so I guess that's the benefit, is they are ready to go. They've got, I think they've even ordered tanks and stuff like that. But
Alderperson Solfax.
Thank you. I think it's getting to be, the more we talk about it, the more I'm realizing it's just too much in too little space for a small little gas station. You know, you might think about, what about if you shrink the building a little bit, where it goes to the west to make up, you know what I mean? It just looks, if you have all the cars parked there and you got everybody in the pumps, there's no room to maneuver in that place, in my opinion. And I'd have trouble supporting this change.
Any more comments on this? Are we ready for, is anybody going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Moved by Besner, seconded by Gam. Call the roll, please.
Gam?
Yes.
Petrillo?
No.
Wirball?
No.
Lester?
Yes.
Weber?
No.
Kulkaitis?
No.
Folds?
No.
Baumgart?
Yes.
Munts?
No.
Motion doesn't pass.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the next item, recommendation to approve plat of easement vacation and plat of easement grant for 2910 Greenbrier Drive.
Okay, plats of easement have been submitted for this property to accommodate a proposed building addition to the existing home. Currently, two adjacent 10-foot public utility and drainage easements bisect the property. A storm sewer runs through that easement and discharges into the detention area behind the property. Jeff Johnson of JRJ Builders is proposing to relocate the storm sewer further west on the property to accommodate the home addition. Platted easement vacation has been prepared, vacating the existing easements, and a new easement is proposed in the location of the relocated storm sewer. Engineering plans have been reviewed by staff. The storm sewer will be relocated at the property owner's expense, and staff recommends approval.
Okay, awesome. Are there comments from the council? Then I'm looking for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Wirball, second by Petrillo. Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Petrillo?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Folds?
Yes.
Baumgart?
Yes.
Munts?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's approved. Moving on to recommendation to approve special use for a drive-through for Chick-fil-A, 3795 East Main Street. Thank you, Bruce.
Yes, hello, Mr. Chairman and Alderpersons. The next item on the agenda is a request to approve a special use for a drive-through facility for a proposed new Chick-fil-A at, let me put my glasses on, 3795 East Main Street. This is a proposal that would replace the existing Chili's building that's been vacant for a while. Some of the specifics of the proposal: it would be a new restaurant building with outdoor seating of about 6,000 square feet, just shy of that number. It would include a 2-lane drive-through facility with 2 canopies. That's the portion of the proposal that requires the special use approval. Access to the site would be modified somewhat from the current configuration. There would be a new access drive on the south side of the property that will require approval of a modification to a shared access agreement with the hotel to the south that is pending. And the proposal includes about 75 parking spaces. The proposal was considered at a public hearing by the Plan Commission on September 6th. Plan Commission had a number of minor comments, but overall voted to approve the proposal unanimously. And staff is working on some minor comments as well.
Comments from PD? Alderperson Wirball.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this come to the east side. It's nice to see something different. I'm totally in favor of this. The only thing I ask for is that they comply with the landscaping requirements and then the lighting, the site lighting. Other than that, I think it looks great, so.
Other comments from PD?
Yeah.
Real quick, you mentioned the...
Thank you.
Sorry.
I think you wanted a variance for the sign too? Is that correct? For signs?
I know there's going to be a monument sign.
Right, but I think you wanted 4 signs and the ordinance says only 3 allowed, is that correct?
I believe that the current proposal complies with all of the sign requirements.
Okay.
I don't know the history of what they originally proposed.
I know 4 was originally, correct? Okay, so this long as you're going to...
I believe, yeah, that currently they meet all the requirements.
Okay, because I'm saying in here that it didn't say you met them yet, but you're in agreement then? That is the case,
yes.
Correct? They're agreed with our sign ordinance?
Yes, they've agreed to remove the 4th sign. They're not objecting to that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's been vacant for several years. And the last proposal was for a car wash there. And I know the hotel would not give grant access. I'm hoping you'll have luck with your proposal to get it done.
Any other comments? Alderperson Petrillo.
Getting a little deeper, you said the hotel, they haven't gotten an agreement with them yet?
I believe that the developer for the Chick-fil-A is in conversations with the hotel so that the access agreement or the access easement can be modified.
Right.
to allow that second driveway on the south side of the Chick-fil-A site.
With the hotel, I mean, there's no it's not going to be a deal breaker in any means. Have they conveyed that, or?
Yeah, I don't think it's controversial,
Okay.
but I don't know if the hotel has any concerns or what the conversation is.
I hope not. I welcome Chick-fil-A. I have to go all the way to Batavia anymore, so that's great. So thank you. I approve. I mean, will approve it, of course.
Alderperson Weber.
I think just adds to the momentum on the east side of town, and if nobody else has any other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Jim?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirbel?
Yes.
Bessner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Kulturitis?
Yes.
Folk?
Yes.
Baumgart?
Yes.
Munn?
Yes.
That passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is a recommendation to approve a license agreement with Northern Green Walnut Street LLC for a concrete walkway located within city property, 309 Walnut Street, South Walnut, parking lot R.
Yes, this is a license agreement over a portion of a city parking lot behind 309 Walnut Street. Currently, there's an existing paver walkway that provides access between the building and the curb line of the parking lot. It's not clear who installed these pavers, but it's been in this location for quite a while. The property owner is interested in replacing this walkway, and staff is requiring that the owner enter into a license agreement with the city to identify this as a private improvement on city property, with maintenance and liability requirements for the walkway being the responsibility of the property owner. Staff's recommending approval.
Questions, comments? Indeed.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Jim?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirbel?
Yes.
Bessner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Kulturitis?
Yes.
Folk?
Yes.
Baumgart?
Yes.
Munn?
Yes.
That passes. Thank you very much. So, on to F, recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing the release of request for proposals for a downtown riverfront property feasibility study.
Good evening. Good evening. At the June City Council workshop meeting, city staff gave a presentation and outline for an RFP to conduct a feasibility study at the former PD site. That, of course, is the property that is city-owned just north of City Hall here. Essentially, what this resolution does is it makes that formal and gives staff direction to issue the RFP to conduct a feasibility study. Just to be clear, this is not seeking development proposals from developers at this time. This is to hire a consultant to conduct the feasibility study. Part of the feasibility study would include public engagement platform, environmental site assessment, geotechnical analysis, floodplain mitigation analysis, utility analysis, demolition cost, traffic study, and parking analysis. And with that, I can take any questions.
Questions? Alderperson Wirbel.
So, I'll try and keep this short. So, I'm fine with everything in here except for the public engagement piece. I think it's incredibly important part of this process. I just think it's a little premature to put that out there while we're doing the studies on the geotechnical study, the utilities, all that stuff. Because if we're going to be out there asking questions of like, what would you like to see there, things like that, while we're doing the other studies, we may be asking a question that we cannot fulfill, right? Like they say, well, I want to see a hotel or I want to see an amphitheater. Maybe the study says, well, you can't have either one. Why are you? And then we'll be asked, well, why are you asking the question now? So I'm fine with it, but I think maybe if we can have it in step 2, maybe issue another RFP a little bit later. I'm okay with that. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but the technical studies I'm fine doing now. It's the public engagement I want to do after we get the technical studies back, so we know. Don't ask this question because it's not a viable option for the property. Is what I'm saying. So that's where I'm at with that.
So with that, is that a comment that you would incorporate into your RFP? Is that,
I think I would probably keep the RFP as is, but I do think it is a fair point, and it's something that as we go through the process and we talk with the consultants that apply, we would want to get their take on it. But I understand what you're saying, so we could work that into it. And whenever we do pick a consultant and we bring that contract forward, I think that's a fair question to bring up. And
so time it. So just time it a little later. Yeah. So we put it out there. We would just do it later. That's
Do
fine
the
too.
technical first, and that may dictate.
Yeah, I'm
public
fine with that
engagement.
process, that approach.
We're talking about throwing an RFP out there, so there's going to be conversation about how they conduct themselves if they're chosen.
Right.
Okay. Understood. Alderperson Kemp?
No, I agree with Brian, and we talked, I remember that workshop is putting something out there that we can't live up to. And I know when we got to this point was the RFP was like, what can that site support? Before somebody says, I want a hotel, or I want some other thing that we come back and find out you can't do that. So I think whoever we consult with when the RFP comes back, see what their take is on how do you do that, and maybe put it a little bit later, a phase 1B or phase 2 as it goes along. But great work on this, Jared. Thank you.
Understood.
Alderperson Silkaitis?
Thank you. It looks good. I can see Brian's point there. A couple things that I want to make sure that when we do this proposal, that we specify with the guidelines. We specify that you must stay within the guidelines. We saw what happened last time. And if a proposal comes in that does not adhere to those guidelines, I want it to be rejected. I don't even want to see it up here. I want them to follow what we want there. I don't want them to say, well, maybe this. I want them to follow the guidelines exactly how we propose them. And another thing is, well, to me, parking is very important with this. And I want to make sure that any I don't know, maybe I'm bringing this up too early, but with parking, I want to make sure that any parking that they're going to remove during the construction, they have to put it somewhere else. Okay, they have to provide it while they're doing construction here. They got to provide parking somewhere else to do it.
Alderperson Silkaitis, just for a clarification, this is a request for proposals for a consultant to evaluate some of the geotechnical and other aspects.
Okay,
This
am I
isn't
too
for
early?
the actual,
Yeah.
This is not for the actual development proposals. That would be tackled at that phase.
I stand corrected. Thank you then. Okay.
Alderperson Bogner?
So
I read it wrong.
we would anticipate getting the responses back January, February-ish. Are we doing a winter strategic planning session like January, February?
Yes, we will be.
Okay, so is that going to be budget, financial driven?
Primarily be budget, but we can add on.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
So going back to our June workshop, I made a pretty public comment about it doesn't, not to say it doesn't matter what the study comes back. Obviously, if it says you can build a Ferris wheel, there's not enough support for it. But ultimately, it's the 10 people that are sitting up here that if we can't find common ground, the feasibility studies are great. We need to know what we can and we can't do. But ultimately, you got to find what this council will support and get on board with. And somewhere between now and this, I'd love to have that conversation in whatever form that would look like. The workshop makes a lot of sense or something, because I think that's more important than the feasibility study. Or I think that shouldn't say more important. I think that's the most important first step, is finding out where these 10 people are.
Okay. Any other comments? Alderperson Triller?
Just a matter of procedure. I mean, I agree with Brian's comment as well. Do we need to bake that into the motion, or you're here, you're going to do that?
We'll be getting the proposals back from the consultants, and at that point, when we award a contract, that's where we would push that into the contract.
Okay.
So then we can delay it, say, okay, this is phase one, do the study, and then you can do the public engagement program second, like kind of just stagger it a little bit. That's something we can do.
We still want them to provide it. We can just discuss the timing of it.
It's your feeling that a comment like that, I mean, we're going to have a lot more discussion with people as they present, and that can all be addressed competently, even if we give approval as stated?
Yeah. Right, but I think we do have to take in mind what Ryan's saying here, because ultimately, it's going to come down to what are our yeses and direct yeses, direct no's. If there's something we feel strongly about going in, or more importantly, it sounds like not going in, but maybe not going in. If we don't think it's going to be fit or being best for the city. I agree with what Ryan says. I'd like to have a spot where we could talk about that and get that on the table as well, just so even the public kind of knows where we stand with things before they come in. I don't know if that's right, wrong, but I just like the idea.
Yes, so when city administrator and I work up the agenda for strategic planning, we'll add something in that will appease everyone.
Yes.
So, right, and so, but I also want to get a sense here, are you saying, I mean, are you giving direction to staff, or are you saying that you actually want something, changed in the approval
no,
right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, no, well, I just want to make sure that we're clear what we're talking about, so.
I didn't want to let moment pass up, right, that we gotta just,
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, we will hold Derek accountable for those comments.
I'd like to move for approval.
I have a motion and a second. Thank you very much. Would you please call the roll?
Gam,
yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wireball.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Kulturitis.
Yes.
Volk.
Yes.
Baumgart.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you very much. That concludes our agenda for today. We have an opportunity for public comments, and I believe that we do have people who are interested in making public comment today. Go ahead and approach to make comment, and just state your name for the record. So come on up.
Good evening.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Stewart, and I live on Route 31 and the Fox River. Last Friday, excuse me?
Lindsay, could you just make sure that you speak up, because I know some people in the back of the room are having a hard time hearing.
I don't know how close I can get to this
That
thing.
sounds perfect. I think
Okay.
we're doing good now.
Good, okay. Last Friday, some of us became aware of a Army Corps of Engineers activities doing research about removing the dams on the Fox River. We became alarmed at this because, first of all, we didn't find out through any normal channel. We found out through the neighbors visiting websites and things like that. There was rumors, and then there was evidence that we found. And we came up with a press release that was done in Chicago regarding our Fox River, which I thought was a little strange, but I think there's a whole lot of things that are strange about what I'm going to talk about. The pride of the Fox may soon become the end of the Fox. Friday night, September 8th, we received the information that the Army Corps of Engineers has completed a long-time research study of the Fox River and its dams. The Army, they concluded their findings that all the dams on the Fox River, 9, 10, 11 of them, the number keeps changing, should all be removed. This would make a free-flowing river and the beginning of restoring, are their comments, the natural habitat for animals and fish trying to live and grow in the Fox River. Okay. We're all aware of how improved the Fox River is over the past 20 years. Intelligent, logical ordinances for pollution have been authorized and established. Wildlife varieties of fish and other creatures that live in the water are flourishing and have all increased greatly. Fishermen are having a heyday, being able to catch and release or catch and eat their fish. The animals walk freely up and down the river. We have deer, fox, beaver, 6-foot-long beavers. Otters, multitudes of water creatures are now benefiting from the good stewardship that we as a family of human beings on the river have created and maintained. If our dam is removed, we will witness a significant change in the river. It has been shown by various qualified entities that removing the dam can reduce the river 60, 70% or more, depending on what the platform of the river, what it's on. Instead of a river, we'd have a creek that meanders around sand dunes and rocks. We would no longer have the benefit of the businesses that live off or benefit with tourists and residents. We would lose our paddle boats for the park. We would lose our motorboat activity and our fireboat. The river would likely only sustain kayaks, canoes, paddle boards. The era of the beautiful Fox River and its tourism would be over. The financial losses and expenses would be mind-boggling, and we would get funding of about 65% from the federal government, and the rest would have to be paid for by the city. That money does not include, or that assistance does not include the repairing of what taking the dam would do out. It's nothing for beautification. It would not replace anything that was torn up. That would all fall on the city and the homeowners. The expenses would fall on the individual homeowners and the city, and I can't even imagine what that full cost would end up being. I've lived in St. Charles for 66 years, 53 of them on the river. The properties were bought because of the peaceful ambiance and living, soothing nature of a flowing river. The beauty of the Fox is enjoyed by all of us. Not everyone can be so fortunate on the river, but the access to the Fox River is maintained by the City of St. Charles for availability to everyone, all residents, all guests. You are being asked to renew your commitment to the stewardship of the Fox River. You are being asked to defend the quality of life for animals and human life that we now enjoy. The Army Corps of Engineers has, without notice, researched our river, and they have ready to move in on their projects. They already are tearing apart the Carpentersville Dam. That was owned by the Kane County Forest Preserve, and they gave them permission. The other dam that's probably going to be gone is the one in Batavia that's been damaged for so long. It's economically not doing anything, and there doesn't seem to be care to repair it, just to go ahead and let them destroy it. The Army Corps of Engineers is ready to move all the dams on the Fox River unless there is opposition and good intelligent reasoning to keep our dam in our world and for us to continue our stewardship on it. Think about what happened to the commerce of St. Charles if the Fox River was reduced by as much as 60% or more, and if its pool of water that enables us to be the only body of water within 30 miles where you could use anything with a motor. Jet skis, paddle boats, kayaks, and canoes all are enjoying our river now. People race and practice on our water because it is the only full-body water compared to the rocky creeks that are all around us. I want you to consider the private property situations for the homeowners and an immediate loss of property value and the repairs and landscaping that would be required after this. Those costs are out of sight, almost unimaginable. The dam removal will definitely create tremendous hardships for each and every riverfront homeowner, HOA community like Farmington, and the city. I had one of our neighbors on the river was going to come tonight and talk about the sacrifices. He's one of the more recent property owners, and it's really a story about all of us that live on the river. If you've been fortunate enough to sacrifice and find a way to buy a piece of property on the river, it's a constant thing of maintenance and so on. It's expensive because the properties alone usually are more inflated price because of the view you get. But it doesn't mean that we aren't entitled to live there, and we do share with everybody else, and we are part of the stewardship of maintaining the river. This is a critical situation that has just become evident, and we're asking for your help and your insight and your commitment to the stewardship of keeping what we have. And I have some folders for you guys to read. Some.
Also, if you brought things, you can hand them to our staff, and they'll make sure they get disseminated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair Lencioni, if I could just make a couple comments that may help some of the other people in the audience that are looking to make similar comments as well. I just want to clarify, this is, as you said, an Army Corps study. At this point, it is just a study. This is not delegating the city to take any official action at this point. Just as a clarification as well, our dam outside the City Hall is actually owned by the Department of Natural Resources. This is not a city-owned dam. However, we were meeting with the Army Corps. They did inform us that they will not remove that dam unless the city consents to that. That's not their idea. At least that's what we were told to this point. So again, at this point, this is just a study with some preliminary comments and recommendations that are being made. Once that study becomes final, at that point, that would come back before the City Council, before some direction. But I do just want to make a comment that I know both the mayor and City Council are very aware of both the economic development, ecological, as well as the cultural implications of that dam and what the Fox River means to this city. So that will all be part of that discussion when any final action is directed by City Council and the mayor, and that will be a public meeting that will take place.
And I do encourage you all to attend the September 18th meeting. I don't know if we know the exact location where that will be yet.
They are rescheduling the location right now, so we've not gotten word where that.
It's not going to be a public works, but I encourage you all to go to that. And when there is an opportunity for public comment, please do speak up. I think some of City Council will be there as well. So.
Is there a way to?
Oh, if you don't mind stepping up to the podium, so,
Yeah, and I want to make sure, because this is public comment, and I want to make sure
Yep.
that we don't get into a discussion.
Yep,
But
we just
please,
wanted to
state your
make
name,
sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I'm Brian Springmeyer. I also live on 31 on the Fox River. My question is, for the meeting that has been set on the 18th, has the city made a public notice as to its discontinuation and rescheduling?
That's not our meeting.
Only reason being is that there are a lot of other people out there aware of this meeting, and I'd hate to have them show up and there's nothing there.
It's not the city of St. Charles's meeting,
Okay.
it's the Army Corps meeting.
Okay, but
not- we're-
hosted by
Them.
the water.
Nope. It
not-
was posted
no.
by the Army
Yeah.
Corps. We were initially going to lend them space. That has since been
All right.
rescheduled. They will be putting out a revised notice.
And just for clarification too, when you go to that website, there are two other meetings, Aurora and Elgin, and they're going to release that report. It's going to to your point about statement of,
For each location.
or just overall, the report's going to be released overall.
Okay, great.
Just to go, I mean, part of the clarification of that, and so you could clarify, was the purpose for not having it because of that very thing, and we're not hosting it because we're not taking the position on it, so it would
Correct.
be.
This is not a
really
recommendation
bad
or
communication
support.
to say that this is a city project or city taking a position on it. I think that's what they're communicating.
Correct, this is not a city project, yeah.
Yeah, just feel for those that are aware of it and have no way of being notified at this time, at the cancellation.
And if we receive that revised notice, we will certainly share that information, on our social media channels, on our website, if we can, just so everybody is aware of that. But we have not gotten word of where the revised location is.
I guess while I'm up here, is there a way to start action? So instead of waiting for a final report to come out to whether or not take out the dam or not, why don't we make a proposal to actually make a stance at this time, or think about making a stance in the near future before the study comes out?
I certainly take my direction from City
Well,
Council without getting
right now,
into-
I think that's actually a great comment to make. Because this is public comment for us to listen to you, this isn't the right time to have,
Okay.
back and forth.
Great.
But I think that is a great comment, and I believe it's been well heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, make sure that you state your name for the record.
Anderson, 712 Horn, St. Charles, Illinois. We're in Illinois.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Unrelated to the river, right? All right. I came here to hear about the Stewart's Crossing. It's exciting. I knew that Linda was going to talk about the river, so I said I better stay. But I got two comments. One, I was surprised at looking at the old police station as a new study. The last time I was here, took 3 hours of a conversation, and you were going to get the studies that Brian just mentioned, and then you were going to come back with something. I'm on the River Corridor Committee. The River Corridor Committee has been discussing being proactive as what could happen with that. And I'm talking on the mic because it doesn't make a difference. That'll be my fourth point. Okay. River Corridor is going to come and recommend, we're discussing it. Don't hold me to say we haven't decided. But the police station building ought to be gone and be green space that you can see all the way up to the river. What you do with 10 State Building is another story. So to do the whole thing as a study, I want to say we need to be proactive in our next River Corridor meeting. I'm going to bring this up for discussion because you're proceeding ahead without getting your underground or whatever discussions you were going to get. That's my comment on that. The fourth point, I sat in the back thinking that everybody talks to the mic and really hear things. I don't think they really work, guys. But I got to tell you.
So this is a good comment for staff that.
I'm going to give you a comment. I'm talking into the mic. Listen, I'm talking into the mic. Doesn't make a lot of difference. Mr. Besner talked into the mic. He was good. Everybody else missed it. I talked into the mic. It doesn't make any difference. I'm out there becoming a more senior citizen every year, every meeting, and it's getting harder to hear. You're not helping me to be transparent. The other thing that was great is somebody on the screen called up the police to the gas station with a picture. We in the audience could see what's happening in that gas station. Everything else, all we've seen all night is this. If we're trying to participate in the audience, maybe you don't want us here. But I'll say, I think you could put up some pictures and say, this is what we're talking. You're all looking at it, I think, but we're not.
Well, one thing to address, I promise you that City Council wants everybody here. In fact, we passed some things to make improvements. So I'm sorry it appears that way, but I think everybody else is nodding their head. Yes, we want you here, and we want you to understand as much as possible. We apologize
Okay, I'll
for
say it in
the
the mic again.
amplified.
Talk in the mic and show as many pictures as you can. That's my point.
Thank you for the direction.
Thank you.
May I make a comment to that comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Just that we see the same thing on our screen that is shown up here, just so you're aware. We're not seeing anything
Our view is no
different.
different. Awesome. We have, yes, please step forward and state your name, and we'd love to hear from what you have to
Gail
say.
Johnson. I live at 4870 Foley Lane. I am one of your newer residents, about a year now.
Welcome. Awesome to have you here.
Thank you. So Mayor, council member, staff, thank you for everything that you do. It's hard work, I know firsthand. Disappointed in the vote tonight, obviously. An LOC is the government's surety against projects like this going awry. And we voted not to collect that, so we don't have a whole lot of weight behind us. So I'm disappointed in that. I'll put my comments in writing for next time because I'm equally disappointed that your public comment comes after your discussion and vote, really limiting civil discourse. So that's it for this evening, but thank you again. We'll be back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public comment, please come forward. State your name for the record.
I'm Catherine Flynn. I live on 4865 Granfield Drive. I'm in phase 1 of the reserve. We bought in 2008 in August. I have watched the entire development. I don't have a strong position, but I do feel that not all the correct facts were placed in front of you. And I came to this meeting, and I'll be perfectly honest, I've got a 2-hour notice, and I should have done my research to know how I could have participated. So first of all, I felt there was a statement made by Mr. David, who said he felt that there already was resurfacing had already been done in our development this year. And I think he's that seemed to be, I don't know if they would change everything, but that is not our development. So, I mean, I would love to have put up a map because the streets that are under question here are the phase 2 streets. That took place later. So I'm just saying the timeline here, I know the 2005, as I said, we built. So I've seen the whole thing coming. I will tell you the condition of those streets are terrible over there. I mean, there's tank traps. There's going to be more tank traps that are going to develop in the streets. It doesn't look right for St. Charles. I am disappointed that we don't seem, and I'm just going to say this, disappointed that we seem to be at a legal impasse with the builder because Ryland got bought out, et cetera, et cetera. I also felt that the timeline was not enumerated on the back and forth I know the Homeowners Association has been doing. So I'm disappointed that you didn't see that timeline. It didn't just happen in July, August. So I understand the dilemma you're in. I feel bad. You have an excellent point about another sidewalk around seniors for $8,000. I totally get that. I'm just saying I was disappointed. I didn't feel everything was placed in front of you. And then the other thing is how many of us were here. Didn't seem to make a difference, but I don't know. So thank you. I've learned a lot tonight, and I'm going to do more research next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Public comment, wait, because we're still in the public comment portion, and there are plenty of people who stay around. So are we done with public comment for this time before we come back up to the council? Okay, we'll additional comments. So, Alderperson Trump.
Yeah, I'm certainly not trying to start an argument up here, but I don't think I said anything during that discussion at all. So just a clarification.
Do we own the dam? The city, or is that?
The Department of IDNR owns that dam. They own a majority of them. There's a few variations, but
it's different municipalities. So
it is mostly DNR owned by most of the dams, and that's true for ours.
Okay, and I have a couple comments myself, and as the chairperson, as the new chairperson too. I did see, Heather, there were a lot of, because we, with a agenda like item like this, there were a lot of people from the neighborhood, but it wasn't an agenda item that was built for public comment. So, and with the motion being called, and I'm just curious if you have recommendations for how to handle that in the future when we have a lot of residents that come out that might have something to add to the conversation, because the way this agenda item is presented, there's not really room for public comment. I'm correct.
We can talk offline a little bit, but I know Alderperson Weber has done a really good job of this as well, of noting that there are a number of audience members here and allowing public comment. You as the chair can suspend the
and I will say to the person left from the reserve, I apologize with this being my second. I was going through that pretty quickly, and I was trying to figure that out too. But I will say this, for people from the reserve, we're not finished with this item. I mean, this is the first time it's come to us, and I think that we all know there are things that we as a city have to do on behalf of the neighborhood. We're going to figure them out. I think that there's a lot of questions on exactly what's possible still, and it's new to us, but I can tell you, even people who were not in favor of what was proposed tonight, there's going to be a lot more discussion, because every person is very concerned about making sure that we take care of our residents, and it takes some time to figure out how to do it, but get where you're at. I think your faith is still well placed in us, and we're going to figure this out as quickly as possible. I'm speaking for myself and my intentions. So, but that's one. Is I was kind of disappointed that I didn't really, the question got called, and I wasn't sure exactly where public comment belongs. So I feel like I might have dropped the ball. Second, more just as an older person, I wanted to make a comment as we talk about the Army Corps of Engineer and the river. I think that there's I encourage everybody to get educated on this, because there's going to be a lot of conversation about it. And I personally take the position that we do absolutely need to protect the level of water, north of the train trestle, as we see a lot of comments coming through. And I think that there's going to be a lot of good information that we got. But if you take a look in our comprehensive plan and everything else, you see that the river is the central asset in St. Charles, and having the pool of water, which, like generations ago, called Lake St. Charles, call it everything. You can see how it went. The amount of culture that's built because our water being that way, from the paddle boats to, neighbors hanging out, in the river all summer long. And people who aren't around the river, you don't understand how much the river, through so many ways, with that body of water being navigable the way that it is, adds to the culture of life in St. Charles. And it's going to be a big conversation. There's going to be a lot of things to learn, and I'm not saying take the dam out, don't take the dam out, but the water level north, I very seriously take the position that maintaining the water level north of the train tracks is incredibly important to the quality of life and the things that we rely on to make this a great town. That's important. So let's all get educated and find out what smart people have, and I have a lot of faith that we can find solutions that meet as many goals as possible. But for me personally, I will definitely fight as hard as I can to make sure that we maintain the water level north of the train tracks. That's a comment that I wanted to make. But there's a lot of things coming up, and there's definitely going to be comment. And I give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt, but I want to always be clear exactly what my position is. Any other comments from staff or elected? Okay, seeing none, nothing executive session, so I'm looking for...
Move to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Second, so moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Sorry, Gem,
Yes.
Trilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Titus,
Yes.
Volk,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Munn.
Yes.
Adjourned. Thank you all.
We're pushing 30 next year, which is crazy. I'm getting old. When I hear top